All right, guys. We're going to be starting the show right now. Welcome to the Pitchfork podcast, guys. All right, guys. We're going to be doing a full show today, guys. We're going to be doing several stories today. Things that should be... Somebody was just ringing me on my phone. Let me go and cut my phone down so that... Cut my phone volume down. That way I give you guys my undivided attention. Now, with that being said, guys, we're going to be doing a full show today. We're going to be doing several things that are different. Well, number one, we're going to be doing some things that are the same. We're going to be reading from several different news sources so I can inform you guys and give you the news that I think you guys should know about. Not the celebrity bullshit news, not the news that about some celebrity's new baby. No one cares about that. It's not going to affect your life. It's not going to change your life. It's not going to get you another freaking stimulus check. It's not going to get you a check where you can improve your life. I'm not worried about the next celebrity and their kid. Fuck them. You know, I'm not worried about the next celebrity and if they can make ends meet. I'm worried about if you can make your ends meet, because guess what? You are the American people. You're the ones that's suffering like right now. You're the ones who haven't gotten more than $1,200 to basically live off of, and the government has been pretty much fucking you over every step of the way. Now, there's been some people who have asked me about my hat. Well, let me explain something to you. This hat says that basically 22 is basically one too many, and the hat is a veteran's hat. It's for supporting veterans and victims of suicide. Basically, that's why I wear it. It's an issue that is near and dear to my heart personally, and make sure I get it on right. And that's why I wear it. So if you guys are interested in that particular hat, they sell them pretty much everywhere. But the reason why I wear it is to raise awareness for people who are committing suicide, and that I think that has only gotten worse in this current pandemic. Now, with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started with the show. Now, I'm going to let you know the number to call in is 253-203-6784. Again, that number is 253-203-6784. I'm going to be checking periodically to see if I got some calls. If I got some calls, I might call the number back. Don't worry. If I missed you, I'm going to call you back. Now, that's as long as the show is running. With that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get into the news stories. Already got some tabs lined up for you. All right. So right now, our first news story of the day is going to be from Fox News. All right, don't worry. We're gonna go into Newsmax. We're gonna go into CNN. We're gonna go into MSNBC. MSNBC has a really spicy one that I want you guys to pay attention to. But basically, we're gonna start off with Fox News. All right, it's a story that was just published an hour ago. Okay, COVID-19 vaccine is not a silver bullet, says the World Health Organization. That should scare the living shit out of you. The WHO has recommended that high-risk groups take priority for initial vaccine doses. This is written by Madeline Farber of Fox News. It was published today about an hour ago. A World Health Organization official this week warned that a COVID-19 vaccine is not necessarily a, quote, silver bullet, end quote, for ending the pandemic. Takeshi Kasai, who's the WHO's regional director for the Western Pacific, told the South China Morning Post on Thursday that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, but these vaccines are not a silver bullet that will end the pandemic in the near future. He also says that this means that, tired as we all are of this pandemic, we must stick to the actions and behaviors which protect not only ourselves, but also those around us. Hand washing, mask wearing, physical distancing, and avoiding places that have a high risk of transmission. The WHO has recommended that high risk groups, those who are 60 years of age or older, and those with underlying health conditions, be the priority for the initial doses of the vaccine. Kasai noticed that if, quote, right scale and type of investments are made, there should be, quote, adequate doses to vaccinate a high priority population in all countries around the world, end quote, by the end of 2021. That, you know, the logistics of getting everybody, even in a high risk group, all vaccinated by the end of 2021, that is a massive, and I mean massive, logistics nightmare. You're talking billions of people in places that are, some places are very, very remote. And if you don't get the vaccine to places that are remote, but have had people that have had COVID and they're just spreading it around, well, then the virus is going to come right back. Except this time it might come back in a mutated form now that it's been passed around in a small but isolated place, whereas the people might come to and from the general population in that particular country. So what that means is you talk about places like the Himalayas and rural areas where, dude, people who come into town for like their general products for like farming, for fishing, for hunting, and for that kind of stuff, you will notice that those people, man, if they're sick, and let's say that they spread around COVID in their small town, and their small town are people who are relatively younger, who don't necessarily qualify to get the vaccine, or very few of them do, that could be a problem, man. So, that's what worries me, about the logistics of getting everybody vaccinated, especially in remote places. Anyways, let's move on with this article. Kasai also says that for others, beyond those high-risk groups, we may be looking at for another 12 to 24 months before the majority of people have received the vaccine. And even then, there is some uncertainty and unknowns, he added. Listen, he just said it. This man is from the World Health Organization. He's saying that we may be looking at a year to 2 years before, you, the average person watching this video, watching this live stream, could actually get the vaccine. Seriously, I told people several times already that it may take a while for you to actually get the vaccine. Well, you're hearing the World Health Organization right here telling you that, it could be 12 to 24 months. See, this is why I do the format that I do, to give you several different sources, because I did not see this on Newsmax or MSNBC. I saw this on Fox News. And the fact that they actually got, somebody from the World Health Organization to actually admit this, that's scary as shit, dude. That means that it could be 2 years before you, the average person, would ever get a chance to ever get a vaccine of any type, because of the logistics nightmare that you're looking at. I mean, people don't realize just how many people you have to vaccinate in this country. We are already, America, by ourselves, the third most populated country on planet Earth. It is ridiculous, the amount of people that you would have to vaccinate, essentially. Usually with some of these outbreaks, you only have to really vaccinate, certain areas. You don't have to go all over the planet. And then we're not even talking about, just people that are already here, babies that aren't even born yet. Like that is just the logistics nightmare that you're talking about. It's just, my God. And then we're not even talking about like prisons. CEOs have to go home at some point. Those people have to be released at some point. So getting people vaccinated is going to be a logistics nightmare, and you're hearing it once again from a World Health Organization official telling you it could be 12 to 24 months before you ever see a vaccination. All right, so let's actually continue here. In the U.S., Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, said on Monday that he expects the country to see herd immunity by late spring or early summer after the coronavirus vaccines become more widely available. Fauci said that by the time we get to fall, we can start approaching some degree of relief where the level of infection will be so slow in society we can start essentially approaching some form of normality. He said, though noting that mask wearing and other precautionary measures will likely continue, quote, several months into the second half and beyond of 2021, end quote. So a lot of the mask stuff, a lot of the distancing stuff, that's not going to stop. And here's why it's not going to stop, because as fast as you get that vaccine out there, right, there's going to be a mutation where you're going to need a brand new vaccine. And the same logistics nightmare, it's Johnny Kennard made a very good point in the chat here. It will take 2 to 3 years on average for the vaccine to become available to the average citizen. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And A lot of people don't understand that. Like, there's people already complaining that, hey, you know, how come I haven't gotten the freaking vaccine yet? Guys, they have to actually give it out to people in long-term care facilities and also your first responders, because let's say that you get a freaking heart attack, let's say you get shot, you get raped, you get your house broken into, and you get hurt. Well, someone has to actually come and pick you up and take you to the freaking hospital, right? You don't want that person to have COVID-19, because because you know, let's say that you have breathing problems and you got to go to the ER. Well, if you think you have breathing problems before, if that person who has to go pick you up, who has to go and pick you up and take you to a freaking hospital via an ambulance, well, if that person has COVID, you're really gonna have some breathing problems. Trust me. So it's gonna be even worse. So that's the reason why I wanted to go over this article, to kind of show people that you got to be patient, man. You know, this is not because this pandemic is not going away anytime soon. You gotta be patient, you know. And I totally get that this is not what you want to hear, because it's not what I wanted to hear. I want to see some normality too. Because like, I'm a big movies fan. I want to go back to the movies, but we can't do that now. Let's go ahead and finish out the rest of this article here. It says right now the FDA has granted emergency approval of a COVID-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer and BioNTech. Healthcare workers and residents and staff of long-term care facilities began to receive the jab this week, meaning that the healthcare workers, and again, like I said, people in long-term care facilities, they already got, you know, their vaccine. It says here, another promising candidate developed by Moderna is likely to gain emergency use approval as early as this week. And the difference between the Moderna and the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccines is that the Pfizer and BioNTech ones have to be stored in a very, very cold temperature, and on top of that, you have to take more than one dose. I think the first dose you got to take, and then 2 to 3 weeks later, I'm not sure, don't quote me on that. But yesterday, I gave you a Pfizer/BioNTech info sheet. I think I might post that in the chat one more time. But basically, you have to take two shots from the Pfizer and BioNTech vaccines, while with the Moderna one, it's only one shot. All right. A third candidate from Johnson & Johnson, which would require just one dose, is working its way through the pipeline. Behind that is a candidate from AstraZeneca and Oxford University. U.S. health experts are hoping a combination of vaccines will ultimately eliminate the U.S. Will ultimately enable the U.S. to conquer the outbreak. You know, the one that I'm hopeful for is going to be the one from Oxford. Because I trust them more than I trust AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, or even Pfizer and BioNTech, because that's Oxford. You know, they have the, you know, infectious disease experts on hand. You know, whereas the companies, yeah, they definitely have that, but not quite like Oxford. That's a pretty prestigious university. You know what I mean? So I mean, that's the one that I'm looking forward to. So I'm going to drop a link down to this in the chat so you guys can have this. Now I want you guys to have this so that, you know, you can see what I see. You don't necessarily have to sit here and ask YouTubers for information. I want you guys to be able to take things for yourself and research things for yourself. That's the reason why I make, you know, the kind of content that I make, so that you guys can get it and you don't have to sit here and try to get it from one biased source. I want you guys to question me even when I give you, you know, the information. So here, it's gonna be from Fox News, and so the next one I'm gonna be reading from is gonna be from Newsmax. Now, for the left-leaning crowd that might be watching, I do this because I want to give it from all sources, and Newsmax is pretty far right. Yeah, I understand that, but I'm gonna go to MSNBC because the very, very next one after this is gonna be CNN, and then after that's gonna be MSNBC. So you kind of see what I'm doing. I'm going from, you know, right to left, and I'm trying to go from the extreme spectrum so that you can make up your own mind. You don't have to just take my word for it. Now, granted, I will give my opinion while I'm reading you the news, but I am giving you the links so that you can read for yourself, so that you don't have to just take my word for it. And I'm one of the only content creators that will do that, because I'm not going to just pick one source from a left or the right. I'm going to give you all the options, because again, I don't want you to even trust what I say. I want you to fact check everything that I say. And if you got a problem with it, call in. Right? Give me a second. Take a little sip. All right. So let's go down here to Newsmax. Now, this This story from Newsmax is very, very interesting because I thought that it was interesting that the Republican Party is now focusing on the future. Because at one point, the Republican Party was so focused on this freaking election and not so much about the future. This is from Newsmax. This is a very good story. This is a very good sign that the Republican Party is at least trying something different. I don't like what they're doing, but you're trying something different. You're playing to win now. The GOP is in great position to take the House in 2022 due to redistricting. So basically, redlining and just changing up the districts could actually make it so that the GOP takes over the Congress. If you can get Congress, that's a major pull. And so, if you're on the right, this is basically what I would be focusing on. If you're on the right and you want to win, I've been pushing more towards leftwards. But however, if you're on the right and you want to win, this is the route that you want to take, because if you can control Congress, it doesn't really matter who's president. They got to get through you first. And you already got the freaking Senate, right? So all you got to do is maintain the Senate and then retake the House with the redistricting. And then, you could actually dominate. You could come back in 2024, because this is going to be, because this is actually possible in 2022, 2 years before the next general election. So if you go into the next general election controlling the House and Senate, and you got a chance of retaking the White House, you got to roll flush. So we're going to read from this article here. But again, do you kind of see why I tell people to focus on the future? Because this is your pathway into winning again. Okay, this is written on Thursday, December the 17th, which is today, by Theodore Bunker of Newsmax. The Republican Party is, quote, in great position, end quote, to take control of the House in 2022 thanks to their slight gains in the lower chamber in the recent election, which could give the GOP the advantage when redistricting. I can never pronounce that correctly. I'm sorry. Republicans won 11 seats in the last election, which brings them to a total of 212, which is just six shy of a majority in the House. You're just 6 seats away from a House majority and a Senate majority. Why focus on a general election that you lost when in 2024 you could have the royal flush? Listen, this is not even 2024. This is 2022. By 2022, so long as you maintain the Senate, you could regain the House. And by 2024, have Trump rerun and try it all over again. Except this time, you control the House and Senate. And then on top of that, you could actually shape things up. Whereas, where basically you control the House, Senate, White House, and you've gotten, Trump's recent Supreme Court picks. That's a lot of power to wield, and honestly, it's not something that I necessarily want to see, because I think that will give one party too much power. But that could happen, especially if Joe Biden starts fucking up. Okay, this is we start in a great position. Dan Constant, head of the Congressional Leadership Fund, a super PAC associated with the House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Republican from California, told the Washington Examiner. But he also said that but the last thing Republicans should be doing is measuring the drapes. The Cook Political Report's Dave Wasserman recently noted that Texas could gain an additional 3 districts once reapportionment takes place, though many of the new residents may be left-leaning. He also said in a tweet on Wednesday, Texas is set to gain 3 seats. The Republicans will likely try to expand their current 23 their current 23 Republican to 13 Democrat edge to a 26 Republican to 13 Democrat edge, all while adding at least 1 new Hispanic majority seat and a new Dem seat in Austin. He tweeted on Wednesday. Since Republicans came within a handful of seats of the majority after the 2020 elections, the majority should be within reach, added Nathan Gonzalez of Inside Elections, a nonpartisan political analysis and research organization. But redistricting makes handicapping the House a little complicated because there will be new lines around the country. So basically, basically, what he's saying and what everyone's saying is that the GOP, despite the fact that they are in great position to win everything, despite the fact that they pretty much this whole House and Senate race is basically theirs to lose, despite the fact that that in all honesty, they've been just acting like big babies this entire time. Despite all that, they still got a chance of winning. They still got a chance of winning. And I guarantee you that won't be the focus. The focus is going to be my thumbnail and the mean darky is saying mean things about my orange Hitler. That's going to be the discussion. Anyways, we're going to move on to the next story, guys. We're going to move to the next story. We're going to post that link in the chat for you guys so you guys can have that. Go over here. Let's go down to the chat and drop that in the chat. This is from Newsmax. All right. So that's one from the Newsmax, and we're gonna go back over here. We're gonna go over to CNN. CNN. This is something that I thought was interesting. This is a very interesting story and something that always gets me kind of fired up because of Breonna Taylor. But it's something that targets Joe Biden when it comes to Breonna Taylor. All right, so Breonna Taylor's mother urges Joe Biden to keep his campaign promise of police accountability by Julia Hayward and A.J. Willingham of CNN. Is published on today on December the 17th, updated on 12 p.m. Eastern time. So basically, Breonna Taylor's mother is going at Joe Biden and says, you better keep your promise. Because he made a whole lot of promises on behalf of Breonna Taylor. And that's something that we should hold Joe Biden to. And even the right should hold Joe Biden to, because if he made that promise, he should keep it, right? Right? Yeah, that's what I thought. He should definitely keep that promise if he made it. So, what we're going to be focusing on right now is going to be the story in terms of how this person wrote it, but also some of the things I thought about the whole case. So, Breonna Taylor's mother. Hold on, give me a second. CNN. Breonna Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, wants to get the president-elect's attention. Palmer penned an open letter to President-elect Joe Biden in a full-page ad that ran in a weekday edition of the Washington Post, asking Biden to hold police accountable by enacting a list of measures and policy changes to address police brutality once he is sworn into office. Taylor, 26, was shot and killed by Louisville police. Shot and killed by Louisville police in a botched raid in March, and her death has been one of the most enduring tragedies motivating this year's elevated call for racial justice and police reform. Her murder sparked protests across America and inspired activists to demand accountability in policing across the nation, Palmer wrote in the letter. So far, we have seen none. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I agree with her. I have not seen anything different than what I've been seeing. I've been seeing the same mess. And I tell you what, Joe Biden, you better keep your goddamn promise. Because if not, you think that I lit up Donald Trump. You think that I lit up some of these road pirates, these gang members with goddamn badges that we call cops. You think that I lit them up. Let Joe Biden not keep his damn promise. Okay. You will see just how loyal I supposedly am to him. I was never loyal to him, but I don't understand why anybody thinks that, because I just don't like Trump more. But okay, whatever you say. Now, we're going to move on with this article here. Louisville Police Chief Steve Conrad announced his retirement in May amid growing pressure around the case and was later fired. A grand jury eventually brought 3 charges of wanton endangerment against Brett Hankerson, one of the 3 officers on the scene at the time of Taylor's death. But so far, none of the officers have been charged with her murder. And that's what it is, murder. The letter lays out a list of suggestions. In her letter, Palmer also discusses Biden's campaign, in which he publicly pledged to combat institutional racism and reestablish a police oversight committee. Black voters in major cities were instrumental in Biden's victory in such states as Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. The Breonna Taylor Foundation also offered free rides to Louisville voters to polling sites. For many Americans, a vote for you was a vote for Breonna, Jacob Blake, Casey Goodwin, and so many others who have been failed repeatedly by the current criminal justice system under the current administration, Palmer wrote. The letter ends with a list of suggestions for Biden to enact, including appointing people to the Department of Justice with a track record of addressing police brutality, reopening brutality cases that weren't completed before the Obama administration ended, ordering large-scale federal investigations into such cases as Taylor's, and investigations into police departments with high police brutality cases. She also wrote that we need your actions to show that you are different than those who pay lip service to our losses while doing nothing to show that our loved ones' lives mattered. The letter also directs readers to a website where they can see the full-length ad and find a list of demands for the Biden administration. The initiative is part of the Grassroots Law Project, which was co-founded by Sean King and Lee Merritt. The Biden administration has yet to publicly respond to Palmer's letter. You know, that is interesting. Even if you don't like Lee Merritt or Sean King, what happened to this woman's daughter was a tragedy. It was murder, you know. So it's from CNN. There's a link right there for you, guys. Let me check the Skype and let me see if I got any calls. No calls from me. Wow. I guess MAGA's scared, man. They talk all that smack in the trash, but it's not all of MAGA. I guess it's not all y'all. Don't get me wrong, but it's a good bit. It's a good bit that's been doing it. But yeah, I'm also going to leave a link to where you can see the full-length letter so that you can see everything that she wrote. You don't just see part of it. That way you can't say, no one can say that Tamika Palmer, Breonna Taylor's mother, open letter to Joe Biden. There we go. So that's in the chat too. Now, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on ahead to the next story. Because again, we're gonna be breezing past, man. We're gonna every segment we're gonna find news stories and just give you guys more and more news. All right. So we're gonna close that out. We're gonna go over to MSNBC. This story, this is the one that is crazy to me. This story is absolutely insane to me. This is modern day slavery, and something that we as black folks should definitely speak up against, because an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. China's forced labor cotton market dredges up grim memories of American slavery. More than 150 years after the end of the U.S. Civil War, the cotton market is once again the center of human rights abuses. They have people they have China right now. It's just kind of hard to even word it because it makes you so freaking angry. China right now has their citizens picking cotton as slaves. They have their citizens picking fucking cotton as slaves. Where the fuck is Joe Biden? Where's Donald Trump? Someone needs to speak up and say something. Especially Biden, since he wants to do backroom deals with goddamn China and shit. Him and his goddamn son. Speak the fuck up. These are human beings who are being forced to pick cotton like fucking slaves. Every black person in goddamn America, every black person in damn Africa should fucking be outraged at this bullshit. How dare China treat human beings like this? See, shit like this is why I should never be damn president. I would nuke their ass right there. Fuck that. I would find your damn military bases and bomb the shit out of them. Let's read. This story made me so fucking mad. And they've been doing this to Uyghurs, the Chinese Muslims. It been making them pick cotton like slaves, man. This is written by Hayes Brown, December 17th, published today. There's something about cotton. The back-breaking crop that powered the antebellum South is etched in the psyche of every black American, and it sure is. And centuries later, it remains one of the clearest symbols of the horrors of the enslaved experience. That racial memory is why a new report from the BBC published Monday stopped me cold when it crossed my Twitter feed. It turns out that halfway around the world, there are still minorities being forced to spend their days harvesting cotton. And it is a part of a program based in racist denigration, an attempt to, quote, better, end quote, a people whom their overseers have deemed backwards. If reading that first paragraph doesn't make you angry, you ain't human. You ain't human. If that doesn't make you outraged, you ain't human. They are forcing people who haven't done anything wrong. They just happen to be different, have different beliefs. And because they have different beliefs, they've been systemically punished and forced to pick cotton like the slaves back in old America. And honestly, it ain't old America because via the 13th Amendment, it ain't old America. It's still new America. We just call it something different. About 20% of the world's cotton comes from the Xinjiang region of China. It is the homeland of the Uyghurs, a mostly Muslim ethnic group that for the last decade has been subjected to brutal repression and a concerted effort directed from Beijing to erase their culture and bring the northwestern province entirely to heel. And according to Chinese government documents and media reports, over 500,000 Uyghurs have been mobilized to labor in the cotton fields, fueling China's textile industry. Previous reports have showed evidence of forced labor in Xinjiang's textile factories. These newly reported documents show that the oppression goes all the way to the cotton fields. Taken together, they're the clearest evidence yet that more than 150 years after the end of the U.S. Civil War, the cotton market is once again a center of human rights abuses. It is a case where Beijing's economic and political goals appear to have intertwined. President Xi Jinping has made erasing poverty in China a key strategic goal. Among the more controversial tactics local officials have taken to hit that goal include relocating people from rural areas to urban centers, sometimes leaving them stranded in new cities, and forcing citizens to download an app that strongly encourages donations to the impoverished. There's an ad here. How do I get rid of this ad? But I don't really need to see it anymore. That was making me angry as I was reading it. But as you can see, man, that was pretty brutal. China right now. Let's just show you. I'm gonna Google it for you real quick. I'm gonna give you the story real quick. I'm gonna go ahead and drop it in the chat so you guys can have this. It is some pretty brutal stuff, man. Basically, China has people forced to work as slaves, and they're picking cotton, just like we did back in the old days in America, and still doing quite a skip via the 13th Amendment. But they're abusing people like that. It's sickening. It really is sickening. I want to guys show you. I'm going China, cotton picking, Muslims. Look at this, man. Look at this. Look at this. Look at what they're doing to people, man. They're forcing these people they're forcing those people to pick cotton. Look at that, man. These are human beings. They're not horses. They're not dogs. These are human beings that are being forced to pick cotton in China, all because they're different. Not because they've done anything wrong, Not because they've hurt anyone, not because they've raped anyone, not because they killed anyone, not because their beliefs, not because them believing something different has gotten anyone harmed or killed. It's because they're different. That's it. That's their only crime. And I ain't gonna lie, like that. When I hear those stories, man, it makes you kind of teary eyed a little bit, you know, because it's like, this is so sad. It's like, what does these people do wrong? You making them, you working them like this, not because they done anything wrong, because they were born a certain, you know, like a certain way. This is why I tell people all the time, there's a danger in this level of racism, man. It's retarded, stupid racism, man. It's why the alt-right was gonna fail always, because this is where your racism leads. It's where it always leads. It never stops. This is where your racism always leads. It leads to people getting hurt like this. It leads to people losing everything. It leads to people, you know, dehumanizing their fellow human beings. It leads to people treating people like slaves and cattle, man. And I really, really think that we need to do better as a society in terms of calling this out. You know, I know that a lot of people have financial interests, and that would probably include Joe Biden. But we got to do better, guys. We got to do better about calling this shit out, man, because this is just, it makes me sick to see this. I'm going to try to move on to another story and try my best to move on past that, man. That's a tough one. We're not going to go into Donald Trump story. But there's a story that I want to cover. This is a story out of Florida. This was kind of interesting. It's got to be a Florida man. So, TMZ reports that a UPS driver was fired after customer complains, "You spit on my Amazon package." This is scary because, you know, it's a pandemic out there. And, you know, since there's a pandemic, that means that if someone's spitting on your damn package, well, that's very dangerous. So this story happened in Florida. A UPS driver is now out of a job after a customer claimed she caught him spitting on a package on her doorstep. But whether he actually hawked one or not is up for debate. This incident went down last Thursday at the home of Ann Patton in Ocala, Florida, where the homeowner says she saw something on a surveillance camera that led her to believe a bitter UPS driver got petty revenge by spitting on one of her packages. UPS was apparently scheduled to come by on that day and pick up a separate package that was supposed to be ready for the driver, but wasn't. Patton tells us she was never notified of any UPS pickup, so that's why nothing was left out. Anyway, Patton claims when the driver arrived and realized what he had been sent there to get was nowhere to be found, he tried getting back at them by picking up the Amazon package that had been left earlier in the day and spitting on it. At least that's what happened in Patton's eyes, who caught the alleged spitting on video. Of course, the Pattons freaked and called up UPS in a rage, saying they were told the driver cannot be canned, but claimed the company refused to replace their Amazon package. Naturally, there's a lot of concern about if he spat on it or not. COVID comes to mind. I apologize for that. All right, decide for yourself. UPS said it looked like their dude mistakenly thought he was a package he was there to pick up and was simply following protocol by blowing on the label to clean it off so he could apply the UPS label. They think when he realized it was the wrong package, he just left. At any rate, they say he's gone, and they profusely apologize time and again to the Pattons. They also say that they want to see the full video before offering any additional compensation, but they claim the Pattons have yet to hand over the unedited footage. Well, if he blew on it without a mask on, I don't give a damn what the reason was. We in a goddamn pandemic. You don't blow or put your mouth anywhere near my package. You don't do that. You don't take your damn mask off when you're handling my fucking package, guy. What the hell are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you putting your lips on my damn package? Why are you blowing on my package? That's what I need to know. You know, and is this a common thing that he did? You know, here's the real question, right? How many people's packages has he freaking spat on? That's my question. How many packages has he spat on? Anyways, guys, we're gonna go over to we're gonna go and take a little break. But before we get into that, guys, we're gonna go ahead and do a little bit of a monologuing. But I want you guys to know something real quick. I want you guys to know that, you know, when I make this content, right, on this channel, right, I want you to understand something. When I make this content, you know, it is not for you to necessarily get outraged with. It's not for you to necessarily, you know, go and harass cops and everything else. That's not the point of me making the content that I make. The point of the content that I make is I want you to question authority. You pay your money, your tax dollars to these people, question them. You pay, you know, and again, you pay this not so much that, you know, that you're choosing to, is that oftentimes you're not given an option. You're told that, hey, you got to pay taxes, and if you don't pay your taxes, you're going to jail. So I want you to understand that there's a reason why I tell you at all times to question your government. There's a reason why I inform you that there are times in which I do want you to, you know, raise a stink. I don't want you to ever get to the point where you feel that the government shouldn't be questioned. I don't ever want you to get to the point where it's, you know, somebody basically, I just don't want you to ever get to the point where you feel that we have questioned the government enough. Because if you ever get to that point, that's a sure sign that you've become a bootlicker. That's a sure sign that you've missed the mark. But anyways, guys, I'm going to go take a 30-minute break. We will be back with more Pitchfork podcast. Again, the number to call in is going to be 253-203-6784. Again, the number is going to be 253-203-6784. Guys, also, I left a link to my Discord chat. I'm going to also make another invite for you guys. I can drop it in the chat for you guys. You guys can have that. If you want to join my Discord, you can join my Discord to go ahead and, I guess, say hello. You know, just don't spam, because I have controls in there too. You know, I don't just allow random spamming. But here's Discord. Link to my Discord. All right. So that's in the chat right now. Guys, I'm going to take a 30-minute break, and I'm going to come right back with more Pitchfork podcasts. Don't go anywhere.
Contain criticism that is both political and social in nature.
But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard.
In the state of South Carolina, all it takes to be jailed for missing their child support payment is one missed payment in 5 days, which is less than a week. In 2015, Walter Lamar Scott was gunned down by a North Charleston police officer by the name of Michael Slager. People protested, people were outraged, and there was a lot of people out there who were confused as to how a man whose only offense was missing a child support payment ends up being gunned down in the back. Well, there's more to the story than this. Here's the other side of the story that the media didn't tell you about the Walter Scott story. Now, do keep in mind that South Carolina only has 5.1 million people in the whole state. So if 13.2% of those 18,848 people were incarcerated at the cost of $14,545, that means that a state with only 5.1 million people spent no less than $36.1 million, which is more than 7 times the dollar amount per person to lock up disproportionately black men on a first-time nonviolent offense when they only had a week to pay. I'm going to reveal something that the world does not know about Walter Scott and part of the reason why he got gunned down. What you see before you is a screenshot from the FBI's own webpage, and this information is about the FBI's National Crime Information Center report listing. And this listing is usually reserved for terrorists and people who go on mass shootings, hence why you have the C in the NCIC, which stands for crime and not civil. And in 2012, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, Chief Mark Keel sent a letter to the South Carolina Attorney General's office with the question of, should people be placed into the NCIC for non-criminal offenses? And in the return letter, which is publicly available, the South Carolina Attorney General's office flat out told Mark Keel and every law enforcement officer and court in the whole state that people should not be placed into the NCIC for civil offenses because the NCIC was intended for criminal offenses, meaning that if someone misses a child support payment, you are not supposed to put them into the NCIC. Now, that opinion was published in 2012 and Walter Scott was shot in 2015. So why is it that Walter Scott was ever entered into the NCIC? You see, if his family knew that, they could sue the daylights out of South Carolina right now. Because Walter Scott getting shot makes a lot more sense because the officer who shot him, Michael Slager, was a law enforcement officer in the state of South Carolina in North Charleston. And North Charleston is a known dangerous area. So when Walter Scott gets pulled over and gets stopped, and when Michael Slager sees that he's in the NCIC, Michael Slager is thinking, okay, this is a very dangerous area. I understand that this list is usually reserved for someone who's like a terrorist or an actual violent offender, and this guy is running. So let me go ahead and shoot him because if I don't shoot him, I could be letting the terrorists run free. Now, Michael Slager should not have shot Walter Scott in the back. That is without question. But you see, it wasn't just Michael Slager who pulled that trigger. It was also the South Carolina government, the courts, and especially the family courts, who have judges who routinely go after people who speak out against judges such as Brenda Bryant and myself and many others. This man was placed into the NCIC as a violent offender for missing a child support payment, even though missing a child support payment is not a violent offense. It's not even a criminal offense. I did my own digging and found this out. Now, the person who originally told me this, it was the woman who was the subject of my last video, who is currently being retaliated against in the state of South Carolina, who was also placed into the NCIC as a violent offender, even though she wasn't a violent offender, and the correctional facility in North Carolina who had her in custody called South Carolina and informed them to cease placing people into the NCIC as violent offenders when they're not violent offenders. Because when an officer encounters that person, they're thinking they're a terrorist or a violent offender. And that places the officer and the individual in question in a situation in which both don't need to be in. Allow me to quote something from the Marshall Project, and this is a nonprofit who only cares about criminal justice reform. In South Carolina, at least 1 in 8 people in jail are there on contempt of court charges related to late or unpaid child support orders. Nationally, as many as 50,000 parents may be in jail on those charges, though the exact number is uncertain, mainly because, quote, contempt of court, end quote, is a general charge that does not only apply to child support cases. The best available data suggests that a majority of these jailed parents are black fathers. Now, how bad does this actually get? Well, here's a quote from MSNBC from an article titled, "How Falling Behind on Child Support Can End in Jail." It says here, 2 surveys of county jails in South Carolina conducted in the last decade found that at least 1 out of every 8 incarcerated people were there because they had been held in contempt of court for not paying child support. Under South Carolina law, if a family receives public benefits, it takes only 5 days of a non-custodial parent, usually a father, falling behind on a payment to trigger a civil contempt hearing that could mean ending up in jail for up to a year. And unlike many other states, South Carolina doesn't allow modifications for how much child support is owed if the parent is incarcerated, whether for owing child support or another reason. The result in such states without such modifications is that people can easily leave jail owing $15,000 to $30,000 in child support, in addition to other fees related to their incarceration. Do you understand what MSNBC and the Marshall Project and the ACLU and so many other organizations have been trying to tell you this whole time about South Carolina's child support enforcement and their child support laws? What they're basically saying is that the laws were not designed for the rich and the famous and the powerful. It was designed for poor people so that you have a reason to extract fines from them. You can get prison labor, you can get federal funds, and on top of that, this gives the cops who are the bad apples an excuse to harass and intimidate black men when they otherwise couldn't justify doing so. Think about it for a second. If you understand that South Carolina is a poor state, and if you understand that the average job does not even pay you within the first week, why would you design laws like this unless you knew that you have a large population of poor black people and poor white people that you can justify throwing in jail over and over and over again under the guise of these being deadbeat fathers, when the truth is, had people read the child support laws and realized how racist and draconian South Carolina is, they would never fix their mouth to make such a statement. Because whether or not Walter Scott owed a child support payment, his black life mattered. In fact, every black father's life matters. I don't think owing anything, and especially in a case of a state that is so draconian, means that your life matters less. And just me making that statement, I know that somebody gonna be in the comment section or somebody's gonna approach me and they're gonna say, well, white people were slaves too. Well, you're right, they were slaves, and they're targeting mostly black fathers, but they're also targeting poor white fathers. And back in the day, it was the poor white people who were slaves. So there's no point in you arguing, because when you mention white slavery and I mentioned the 13th Amendment and what's happening in South Carolina, you're only proving my point. You're right, slavery did exist. It certainly happened to white people, and it's happening right now, and yet for some reason the political right in South Carolina is awfully silent, and yet they have the nerve and the audacity to wonder why people are rioting and protesting. Well, my response to them is zip it. You know exactly why people are angry. You know exactly why people are upset. And it's not just the cops and the courts and the politicians who are sitting around saying, why are people so upset? There are political hacks in South Carolina who are on the political right for the most part, who are going around saying things like, why are people so upset? Well, let me explain to you the reason why in a very, very simplistic way. It's because black people are tired of being treated like niggas, and poor white people wish they had your money so that they wouldn't have to be niggas too. That's the problem here. This is the new Jim Crow. And yet there are some people out there who are so deaf, who are so slow, that they refuse to see that. Because apparently abuse is not abuse so long as the person abusing you has an R behind their name.
In the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard.
In the state of South Carolina, all it takes to be jailed for missing the child support payment is one missed payment in 5 days, which is less than a week. In 2015, Walter Lamar Scott was gunned down by a North Charleston police officer by the name of Michael Slager. People protested, people were outraged, and there was a lot of people out there who were confused as to how a man whose only offense was missing a child support payment ends up being gunned down in the back. Well, there's more to the story than this. Here's the other side of the story that the media didn't tell you about the Walter Scott story. Now, do keep in mind that South Carolina only has 5.1 million people in the whole state, so if 13.2% of those 18,848 people were incarcerated at the cost of $14,545, that means that a state with only 5.1 million people spent no less than $36.1 million, which is more than 7 times the dollar amount per person, to lock up disproportionately black men on a first-time nonviolent offense when they only had a week to pay. I'm going to reveal something that the world does not know about Walter Scott and part of the reason why he got gunned down. What you see before you is a screenshot from the FBI's own webpage, and this information is about the FBI's National Crime Information Center report listing. And this listing is usually reserved for terrorists and people who go on mass shootings, hence why you have the C in the NCIC, which stands for crime and not civil. And in 2012, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, or SLED, Chief Mark Keel sent a letter to the South Carolina Attorney General's office with the question of, should people be placed into the NCIC for non-criminal offenses? And in the return letter, which is publicly available, the South Carolina Attorney General's office flat out told Mark Keel and every law enforcement officer and court in the whole state that people should not be placed into the NCIC for civil offenses because the NCIC was intended for criminal offenses, meaning that if someone misses a child support payment, you are not supposed to put them into the NCIC. Now, that opinion was published in 2012 and Walter Scott was shot in 2015. So why is it that Walter Scott was ever entered into the NCIC? You see, if his family knew that, they could sue the daylights out of South Carolina right now. Because Walter Scott getting shot makes a lot more sense because the officer who shot him, Michael Slager, was a law enforcement officer in the state of South Carolina in North Charleston. And North Charleston is a known dangerous area. So when Walter Scott gets pulled over and gets stopped, and when Michael Slager sees that he's in the NCIC, Michael Slager is thinking, okay, this is a very dangerous area. I understand that this list is usually reserved for someone who's like a terrorist or an actual violent offender, and this guy is running. So let me go ahead and shoot him, because if I don't shoot him, I could be letting the terrorists run free. Now, Michael Slager should not have shot Walter Scott in the back. That is without question. But you see, it wasn't just Michael Slager who pulled that trigger. It was also the South Carolina government, the courts, and especially the family courts, who have judges who routinely go after people who speak out against judges such as Brenda Bryant and myself and many others. This man was placed into the NCIC as a violent offender for missing a child support payment, even though missing a child support payment is not a violent offense. It's not even a criminal offense. I did my own digging and found this out. Now, the person who originally told me this, it was the woman who was the subject of my last video, who is currently being retaliated against in the state of South Carolina, who was also placed into the NCIC as a violent offender, even though she wasn't a violent offender, and the correctional facility in North Carolina who had her in custody called South Carolina and informed them to cease placing people into the NCIC as violent offenders when they're not violent offenders. Because when an officer encounters that person, they're thinking they're a terrorist or a violent offender. And that places the officer and the individual in question in a situation in which both don't need to be in. Allow me to quote something from the Marshall Project, and this is a nonprofit who only cares about criminal justice reform. In South Carolina, at least 1 in 8 people in jail are there on contempt of court charges related to late or unpaid child support orders. Nationally, as many as 50,000 parents may be in jail on those charges, though the exact number is uncertain, mainly because, quote, contempt of court, end quote, is a general charge that does not only apply to child support cases. The best available data suggests that a majority of these jailed parents are black fathers. Now, how bad does this actually get? Well, here's a quote from MSNBC from an article titled, "How Falling Behind on Child Support Can End in Jail." It says here, 2 surveys of county jails in South Carolina conducted in the last decade found that at least 1 out of every 8 incarcerated people were there because they had been held in contempt of court for not paying child support. Under South Carolina law, if a family receives public benefits, it takes only 5 days of a non-custodial parent, usually a father, falling behind on a payment to trigger a civil contempt hearing that could mean ending up in jail for up to a year. And unlike many other states, South Carolina doesn't allow modifications for how much child support is owed if the parent is incarcerated, whether for owing child support or another reason. The result in such states without such modifications is that people can easily leave jail owing $15,000 to $30,000 in child support, in addition to other fees related to their incarceration. Do you understand what MSNBC and the Marshall Project and the ACLU and so many other organizations have been trying to tell you this whole time about South Carolina's child support enforcement and their child support laws? What they're basically saying is that the laws were not designed for the rich and the famous and the powerful. It was designed for poor people so that you have a reason to extract fines from them. You can get prison labor, you can get federal funds, and on top of that, this gives the cops who are the bad apples an excuse to harass and intimidate black men when they otherwise couldn't justify doing so. Think about it for a second. If you understand that South Carolina is a poor state, and if you understand that the average job does not even pay you within the first week, why would you design laws like this unless you knew that you have a large population of poor black people and poor white people that you can justify throwing in jail over and over and over again under the guise of these being deadbeat fathers, when the truth is, had people read the child support laws and realized how racist and draconian South Carolina is, they would never fix their mouth to make such a statement. Because whether or not Walter Scott owed a child support payment, his black life mattered. In fact, every black father's life matters. I don't think owing anything, and especially in a case of a state that is so draconian, means that your life matters less. And just me making that statement, I know that somebody gonna be in the comment section or somebody's gonna approach me and they're gonna say, well, white people were slaves too. Well, you're right, they were slaves, and they're targeting mostly black fathers, but they're also targeting poor white fathers. And back in the day, it was the poor white people who were slaves. So there's no point in you arguing, because when you mention white slavery and I mentioned the 13th Amendment and what's happening in South Carolina, you're only proving my point. You're right, slavery did exist. It certainly happened to white people, and it's happening right now, and yet for some reason the political right in South Carolina is awfully silent, and yet they have the nerve and the audacity to wonder why people are rioting and protesting. Well, my response to them is zip it. You know exactly why people are angry. You know exactly why people are upset. And it's not just the cops and the courts and the politicians who are sitting around saying, why are people so upset? There are political hacks in South Carolina who are on the political right for the most part, who are going around saying things like, why are people so upset? Well, let me explain to you the reason why in a very, very simplistic way. It's because black people are tired of being treated like niggas, and poor white people wish they had your money so that they wouldn't have to be niggas too. That's the problem here. This is the new Jim Crow. And yet there are some people out there who are so deaf, who are so slow, that they refuse to see that. Because apparently abuse is not abuse so long as the person abusing you has an R behind their name.
But in the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard.
In the state of South Carolina, all it takes to be jailed for missing the child support payment is one missed payment in 5 days, which is less than a week. In 2015, Walter Lamar Scott was gunned down by a North Charleston police officer by the name of Michael Slager. People protested, people were outraged, and there was a lot of people out there who were confused as to how a man whose only offense was missing a child support payment ends up being gunned down. All right, guys, we're back.
Well,
we're back. We're gonna go back to the live feed. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that video from the past. That was a video that I made about Walter Scott. If you guys want to link to that video, I'll drop it down below. I thought it was pretty interesting that I grabbed that video because I want you guys to see that. Let me give you a link to that, and that way, if you want to share it, you can share it. If you don't want to share it, that's cool. But my Walter Scott video. And there we go. Links right there in the chat. So anyways, we're going to go back to the news stories, guys. We're going to cover some more news stories because I want you guys to know the news. I want you guys to see what's happening around the world. Now, there's several stories that I've seen from several outlets that were pretty concerning, I will say. There are several news stories that I thought was interesting. One, to recap, we had a few COVID stories. But we had one story coming out of China. Apparently, the Chinese government have been using the Uyghurs, the Muslim minorities in the country to pick cotton, to quite literally pick cotton. And, you know, that is something that it should bother you. it should make you very upset that China is doing this. And the fact that I haven't heard a whole lot from Joe Biden about this, I find it to be very, very interesting. The fact that Joe Biden has been so silent about this, I find it to be very, very intriguing, don't you? I do. Because I would like to hear him, speak up about this, because him and Hunter Biden had a lot to say to China when it came to them getting some backroom deals. And according to the FBI and IRS, potentially money laundering with Hunter Biden. So I mean, if you can talk to China, about that, then maybe you can talk about China when it comes to them abusing their own citizens and making minorities pick cotton. Like we used to, like my people used to pick cotton. Black people. We need to speak out against this with China, because I don't care, about somebody's financial interest or financial investment in the country of China. What I care about is human rights. And right now what's happening in China is disgusting. Anyways, we're going to go back over to the live feed, guys. The number to call in is 253-203-6784. Again, the number is going to be 253-203-6784. Let me go and check the phone lines before we start into the story. Let me see if we got any calls. Make sure. Right. I should have gotten some kind of calls. I always get a few. You put your number out there on the internet, of course you're gonna get more than a few. So Skype is starting up, but before we start, I'm gonna check to see if we got any calls. Got a few, but don't know if I want to go and pick up those. I'm gonna pick up those maybe a little bit later. All right, so right now we're back on CNN, right? There's something else that I thought was pretty interesting. This story. It's coming out of North Carolina. I want you guys to see this right here. All right, so North Carolina governor pardons 5, including man wrongfully imprisoned for 44 years. Holy shit. Oh my God. That is ridiculous. Oh my God. That is ridiculous. Imagine spending 44 years behind bars for something you didn't do. Imagine that for a second. Think about that for a second. What would you do? Imagine how many years this man was probably banging on the wall saying, I'm innocent. Let me out. That's amazing. Amazing. So this guy's name is Ronnie Long. And he's released from prison after 44 years, after being wrongfully in prison for 44 years. North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper granted pardons Thursday to 5 men convicted of crimes they did not commit, including one freed this year after serving 44 years on a wrongful rape conviction. This guy was accused of rape, and so he spent 44 years behind bars for something that he didn't even do. And if that doesn't bother you, I don't know what will. Like, this man, this is an innocent man. This man's an old man now, and his life has been wasted away behind bars when he did nothing wrong. This is Roy Cooper, actually. No. This is Ronnie Long. No. This is North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper here saying, we must continue to work to reform our justice system and acknowledge when people have been wrongfully convicted. Cooper said in a press release, I have carefully reviewed the facts in each of these cases, and while I cannot give these men back the time they served, I am granting them pardons of innocence in the hope that they might be better able to move forward in their lives. How can you move forward in your life when you spent 44 years behind bars for something that you didn't do? Wow. I mean, I want y'all to think about that for a second, man. 44 years this man spent. God, like that is ridiculous, man. So, Ronnie Wallace Long, at age 64, was freed in August after decades of prison. After decades in prison, CNN previously reported. It's been a long road, Long said then, but it's over with. It's over with now. Long, who is black and was found guilty of rape and burglary in 1976 and was sentenced to life in prison. His conviction was vacated after the state of North Carolina filed a motion in federal court seeking to do so. A judge found that evidence from the crime scene did not match Long and was deliberately withheld by law enforcement. So a federal judge found that law enforcement involved in the case where a man was locked up for 44 fucking years for something that he did not do. Law enforcement deliberately withheld evidence that would have freed this man. Cooper also pardoned Teddy Lamont Isbell Sr., Damian Miguel Mills, Kenneth Manzi Kongonyira, and Larry Jerome Williams Jr. They all sound black to me. All of them sound black. They pleaded guilty to charges ranging from robbery to second-degree murder, but were later found not guilty. See, the reason why people sometimes plead guilty is because there's plea bargains and there's deals that the prosecution will try to make with you, try to force you to plead guilty, so that you look guilty, even though you were kind of coerced into, pleading like that. The pardons make them eligible to file a claim under a state law that allows compensation to persons wrongfully convicted of felonies. That was a tough story, man. I'm happy that the man is free now. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy for him. But that's some bullshit, man. That's some bullshit. Like, you can't give this man his freaking life back. Like, there's no amount of money, Wow. I'm going to leave that link in the chat, man, so you guys can see that. There's another breaking news story right now. It's happening, guys. So get ready for that. But North Governor frees man after 44 years of wrongful conviction. It's a sad story, but guys, I have breaking news, guys. Breaking news here. It's gonna be interesting. So FDA right now is voting on the Moderna vaccine. Let me go ahead and open that right now for you guys. All right, this is from the Washington Post. FDA advisors recommend second coronavirus vaccine with agency action expected soon. Thursday's advisory panel. They want me to subscribe to continue reading. I'm not going to subscribe to your freaking channel. Screw that. Just let me read the freaking news, man. Why you gotta sit there and try to... see, is this from Barron's? All right, it's from Barron's. Moderna vaccine gets FDA panel review today. What to expect? So basically, what's happening right now is that they've already voted, and they voted to go ahead and approve it. So FDA panel voting on Moderna today. Let me go ahead and get the other link for you so that you can see that they've already voted on it. So I want to give you the before and after. So this is from Business Insider. All right. So FDA green lights Moderna vaccine. There you go. Right there in the chat, guys. You can go and follow me along. So FDA expert panel endorses Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine, clearing the way for regulators to greenlight the shot. All right. So an independent panel of experts voted on Thursday to recommend that the U.S. authorized Moderna's coronavirus vaccine for emergency use in adults, clearing the way for an imminent regulatory okay of a second COVID-19 vaccine in the U.S. 20 of the 21 committee members voted yes, and one panelist abstained. U.S. Food and Drug Administration regulators are expected to authorize the shot as soon as Friday. Anonymous sources told the New York Times. I feel dry today. If the vaccine gets the FDA's regulatory go-ahead, the government plans to ship 5.9 million doses of Moderna shot to more than 3,000 sites across the nation next week. A late-stage clinical trial found the shot to be 94% effective at preventing symptomatic COVID-19, which is on par with Pfizer's shot. There were no major safety concerns with the 2-dose vaccine, FDA regulators said in briefing documents released Tuesday. There were also no severe cases of COVID-19 among vaccinated study participants, compared with 30 severe cases in the group who got placebo injections. During an all-day virtual meeting Thursday, a group of leading independent experts discussed and debated the vaccine's application for emergency use authorization. The committee included some of the nation's leading virologists, infectious disease experts, and clinical researchers. Advisory committee members and pharmaceutical representatives both stressed the urgency of the situation, noting that one person who got the placebo shot has already died from a severe case of COVID-19, and that there were so many cases during the study. Period that the trial was wrapped up 5 months earlier than expected. Quote, we currently have over 450 cases that are making their way through the adjudication process, end quote. Dr. Jacqueline Miller, an infectious disease vaccine development expert with Moderna, said, calling it a, quote, tsunami, end quote, of new infections. Quote, additional severe cases and deaths are a question more of when and a question of if, end quote, she also said. That is pretty wild. So that's from Business Insider. Basically, the FDA has given the go-ahead there. Moderna is coming in. So basically, we're going to have 2 vaccines that's going to be coming in, shipping out. I don't know when this one's going to be shipped out, but we're all going to see that. All right, so that's going to be another story that you might want to go and check out. So I left a link down there in the chat so you guys can keep your eye on that. We're going to go over to the New York Times. All right. There are actually things that I want you guys to see that's happening. So there's an interesting article that I saw on the front page here, and I thought it was kind of funny. Like the actual thumbnail is kind of funny, and I'm gonna I'm going to leave a link down in the chat. So this right here is going to be from the New York Times. All right, so that's from the New York Times right there, and this is a very interesting thing with the vaccines, mainly because not so much. I'm sorry about apologize. Not the vaccines, but the economy, because I was just talking about the freaking vaccines. By the way, to remind you, the FDA just approved Moderna as the second vaccine. So, but anyways, back to this particular article. I apologize for that. How the economy is actually doing in 9 charts in terms of the of rent, the mortgages, long-term unemployment, new businesses, labor force participation, food scarcity, wages, unemployment for black men. They targeted just for black men, and apparently is bad for everybody, but they wanted to point that out. So this was done by the New York Times, written on actually released on December the 17th by Ella Coots, I want to say, or Keats. I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but I don't want to butcher it any sooner. Nearly a year after the coronavirus outbreak, the full impact of the pandemic on the U.S. economy remains unclear. Some of the most obvious indicators are in conflict. As some companies report enormous profits, nearly 10 million more Americans are now unemployed compared with last February, and over 1 million filed new state and federal unemployment claims last week. Are we still in the early stages of a long recession, or will the rollout of vaccines means we'll soon see the end of a short-term crisis? How much are people suffering now, and for how long will the effects of the past 10 months persist? We asked experts and we asked economists and experts with a variety of backgrounds how they would measure the state of the economy now and what indicators they thought were often overlooked. Here are 8 measures they suggested. People have left the workforce altogether and have not come back. All right, so there's a nice little chart right there, and they're kind of showing you the progression throughout the year. Like basically, people started leaving work, they started getting work again, but they're staying right about here. They're not back to where it was pre-recession. So more than 4 million people left the workforce entirely for February to November, meaning they are either working nor they are neither working nor actively seeking a job. To be counted as unemployed, a person must have looked for a job in at least in the last 4 weeks or be on a temporary layoff. Several of the economists we spoke to mentioned the dip in labor force participation as a cause for concern and a factor that can contribute to a failing unemployment rate without people actually finding work. Yeah. This is from Eliza Forsyth, a labor economist at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Many jobs carry substantial risks of contracting COVID-19, so individuals with health concerns may be sitting out of the labor market. And with many schools operating remotely and childcare closed, many parents are forced to choose between a paycheck and supervising their kids. Like, see, what she said right there was the very, very last part was a biggie. The reason why some parents have not returned to work yet is because someone has to watch their kids, because not everybody has an extended family, whereas they can just pass them off, pass off their kids to somebody. And so unfortunately, for a lot of these parents, especially parents who have kids who are home during the months in which they didn't originally expect for them to be home, it's a tough situation, Like you literally have to choose between going to work or watching your kid, but it's like that's almost an impossible choice, More women than men are leaving the workforce. Research has shown, often because of additional childcare and household obligations that emerged during the pandemic. This could have long-term ramifications on women's careers and earning potential. All right. The number of people who have been out of work long-term continues to rise, and they're showing that chart right there. Like, man, that is high. Jeez, and they're measuring that from January 2019 all the way up to now, and they're actually just comparing it. Damn. Though many workers who were temporarily laid off in the spring have returned to work, a growing subset has been unable to find new jobs despite actively looking. Among Americans who are still in the labor force but are unemployed, the share who have been out of work for more than 6 months has been increasing since April. That is crazy. And here's another chart right here, right? Unemployment has fallen from the worst months, but gaps among demographic groups have widened. Because between certain groups, man, it's been awful. The unemployment gaps. If you look at if you adjust for population size, because again, all the races, they love to just say that, right? They love to say that. But when you look at stuff like this, wow, that is pretty brutal, man. And so this whole article is just let's look. Just even one chart here where this is based on the U.S. Census, the U.S. Census. Basically, more families are unable to meet their basic needs in terms of food and getting housing. More and more people, 12.7% of people out there are experiencing food scarcity, and 9.1% of people out there is experiencing housing insecurity. And come January and February, when the mortgage and rent moratoriums are lifted in these states and even on the federal level, do you think that number is still going to be at 9.1%? Or do you think that possibly that number is probably going to be at about 50%? Maybe 45. You know, that is a doom and gloom story. I understand, but man, that is just. So rent and home prices have risen over the course of the pandemic. So people have been raising, basically the cost of rent to basically it's not really their fault, but it's an inadvertent way of robbing Peter to pay Paul. You know, as things increase, you got to increase things on your customer. I'm not saying that it's like a negative thing. You know, it's just that's the nature of the freaking beast. You know, if the cost of your taxes, if the cost of your own goods, of your own home is right, you know, people who rent sometimes rent out. You know, they actually rent themselves. So it's like, basically you're having a scenario that, you know, with the rising cost of goods, people's rent has gone up and home prices have actually risen over the course of the freaking pandemic. So as people are probably going to be evicted soon, lose their homes soon, you have this going on where the prices of actually renting is going up, while at the same time people are having a tough time finding a job and people are going on unemployment. You know, that is a Molotov cocktail of a combination. Wages and salaries have bounced back quickly, but I'm not sure how much that's going to last. You know, the economy has managed to shift from services towards goods. Yeah, I definitely can see that because you know, basically you have a scenario in which I can kind of give you some examples of this. Instead of people going out to maybe going out to a big social gathering to get, you know, a certain type of experience, or going to a certain establishment to get a certain type of product, they're doing that from home or just ordering it. Like, for example, what I mean is like the movies. You know, the movies is a social experiment. You know, it's a social experience. You know, it's something that many Americans and people outside of America, all over the world, enjoy. And people have been opting to watch, you know, these movies from home. Now, that's just one example. Or, you know, some people, maybe you don't go to your favorite ice cream store to go get your ice cream. You just go to the store, you know, to like the grocery store now. And many of those smaller chains have been hurting because of that. You know, the grocery stores are making record profits, but the smaller mom and pop stores that people maybe don't take the extra, you know, waste up the extra, you know, 5 miles of gas to go drive to when money is tight. Maybe they don't take that trip down to the mom and pop store who might need that $5. You know, and so that's how the economy is essentially shifted. In that, if you're not a big business, or if you don't have a massive online presence or a substantial one, you're not going to really grow to mega business status. Or what's going to happen is, in a more likely case, is that you're just going to die off. You know, so this pandemic, man, it has been claiming scalps and claiming a lot of things, and I want people to kind of get that this has been a tough time for everybody, but it's been especially tough on the poor, the homeless, the people who are already bad off before, but now can't really rely on any kind of social help because everyone needs it now. You know, that's one of the major reasons why I get so upset and I get so fired up when it comes to politicians and you know, not assisting the American people with their own money that these goddamn leeches has already taken from you. You know, you're not being given money, you're being given your money back. You know, it's you know, for some reason people call it socialism when people want a stimulus check. You know, it's not socialism when Nancy Pelosi goes and takes your money and gets her fucking hair did. It's not socialism when freaking freaking Chuck Schumer, he goes out and buys a brand new car. It's not socialism when Lindsey Graham goes out and buys a brand new house with your money. That's not socialism. But it's only socialism when the American people want something. You ever notice that? That's when it's socialism. The question that I want to ask Lindsey Graham is, when is it socialism? Is it socialism when you get your health care? Or is it socialism when I get mine? Which one is socialism, sir? I'm just curious. Inquiring minds would love to know. So it's very interesting how people call things socialism when socialism isn't argued for their dear leaders like Donald Trump. Right? And that is one of the truest marks of a goddamn fascist. It's when, with effect to a fascist, you can never criticize or hold the dear leaders to the exact same standard that you want to hold others to. It's always the citizen who is in the wrong. It's always the citizen who has more onus to have more responsibility than the very government that claims to care about the citizen. It's always citizen. Like when you look at the police, it's always on the citizen to behave themselves and never the police. A deference is never given to the citizens; it's always given to the goddamn cops. And that's one thing that I always find to be baffling and always just so weird is that we have this thing about us, whereas deference is never given to the citizen. Deference is never given to the taxpaying citizen who pays, the freaking tyrants, who pays the corrupt pieces of shit. It's always given to the road pirate. It's always given to the person who is supposed to be empowered to protect the people, but never does. Don't you find it amazing how you as a citizen has more responsibility than the very people who you're paying, who many of you don't even agree should be paid? But somehow it's wrong. Somehow it's unjust that you expect better. And some people would actually call you a socialist or a communist just for saying, hey, maybe if the Congress has free healthcare, maybe we should have taxpayer-funded healthcare too, especially during a goddamn pandemic. Then it's socialism. It's socialism then. Interesting. It's not socialism when Congress and the Senate, President, and all the goddamn Joint Chiefs and all these other bastards, they can get healthcare on your dime. That's not socialism. You have no problem paying for their fucking healthcare. You don't tell them to pay for their own health care, but the American citizen, the single mom who just wants to have some health care, so in case she gets COVID, and she can at least try to at least get some kind of medication, some kind of vaccine. No. See, that's socialism. It ain't socialism when we find out that Eric Swalwell, a representative out of California, was sleeping with goddamn Chinese spies. Allegedly, getting hotel rooms and shit with your damn tax dollars. That's not socialism. It's only socialism when the American taxpayer wants another fucking stimulus. That's a goddamn that's socialism. It's socialism when you have to help the American people. That's socialism. That's when it's socialism. That's when Che Guevara has shown his ugly face. That's when a wild card Marx appears like freaking Pokemon. It's only socialism when it helps the American people. It's never socialism when it comes to assisting the American people. When it comes to assisting the American politician, I should say. It's always socialism when it comes to helping the American people. And if you dare disagree with any of these points, then you're a socialist. I don't even think half the people who use the word socialism actually understands what the fuck that word actually means. I'm pretty sure that they actually don't. And I'm pretty sure that most people who use the words, things like communist and that kind of shit, they don't actually understand what the fuck that actually means. See, I disagree with it because I understand what it actually is. Some people disagree with it because someone told them to. See, that's what makes me different, compared to a lot of other people. in that you ain't got to tell me what I'm supposed to hate, what I'm supposed to be wary of, what I'm supposed to stand against. I go and I do my own research, and I look into things by myself without having somebody come and tell me what I should think, without having somebody spoon feed me a narrative. That's why I intentionally read things from Fox News, from Newsmax, far right. I'll even go Breitbart, MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, Huffington Post, TMZ. There's a reason why I read for so many different sources, because that's how I actually read it. I want you guys to be just like me in terms of reading and researching the news stories that I read and that I cover, so that you can reach your own conclusions. You can get it from multiple sources, and you can reach your own conclusion. Get it from multiple sources, put it in your head, let that shit rattle around a little bit, and then that's what you spit out. You don't just get from one source, basically eat it up and then spit out the exact same bullshit. Because at that point, you are not a free-thinking person. You're a goddamn parrot. And I think better of you than being a goddamn parrot. You are smarter than a fucking parrot. So act like it. You are smarter than that. Every last one of you is an intelligent person who has the potential to be much better than me. And that's my goal. I want to make you better than me. That's what I want. I want you to become better researchers than what I am. I want you to be able to do what I do without breaking a sweat. I want you to be able to hold your leaders accountable the exact same way that I do. Maybe you can't do the video animations. Maybe you can't do like the whole podcast. Maybe you can't talk in a long form way like I do. Just spit off the top of your head. Maybe you can't do that, right? But everybody has a role. Everybody can do something. Maybe you can't talk like me, but maybe you can write better. Become a journalist. Write articles. Submit articles to every local media that you have, or start your own media company. Do that. Maybe you can't write, maybe you can't make videos, maybe you can't be on podcasts, but maybe you're good at organizing, making grassroots organizations for the causes that you believe in. Do that. Even if I don't agree with you, I want people to retake the power away from their politicians and put it back in your hands. And the way that you do that is by using your talents. That's how you do that. Use of your time and also your talents. You don't necessarily need money. You don't necessarily need a massive influence. You don't need a big car, a big house. You don't need all that shit. You don't need to be a part of a big media organization. You just got a will and to find a way. That's it. That's all you need. That's all you need. That's all you need. But anyways, guys, we're going to go back to the live scene. We're going to cover a few more stories. All right. So we're back on that last story. Did I drop that in the chat? I'm going to make sure I drop that in the chat for you guys. Make sure I drop that in the chat for you guys, so you guys can have that. Yeah, I did. I think that was the New York Times. Yeah, I think I did put that down. Okay, so we're going to go over to the Huffington Post. Well, there was one story that I saw that I thought was kind of funny. This is kind of funny. So this one was pretty hilarious. Chris Christie details how wrong he was to not wear a mask in new ad. The former New Jersey governor echoed the sentiments of regret he's made in essays and interviews over the last few months in the emphatic advertisement. This is by the Huffington Post, written by Jenna Amatul, published on today, December 17th at 11:09 a.m. Eastern Time. That is hilarious. Chris Christie says he was wrong to remove the mask, to remove his mask at the White House, and implore others to wear one amid the coronavirus pandemic. In a new national advertisement, the former governor of New Jersey, who tested positive for the virus in October, and then again and then spent a week at Morristown Medical Center, says in the ad that it's not, quote, for everyone, end quote, but, quote, for all those people who refuse to wear a mask, end quote. He said, lying in isolation in ICUs for 7 days, I thought about how wrong I was to remove my mask at the White House, says Christie. Today, I think about how wrong it was to let mask wearing divide us, especially as we know now you're twice as likely to get COVID-19 if you don't wear a mask. Because if you don't do the right thing, we could all end up on the wrong side of history. Please wear a mask. I am very happy today for this ad to start to run on TV across America. I urge all Americans to learn from my experience and to please wear a mask and stay safe. You know, that is precious. That is exceptional material from Chris Christie, who's an exceptional individual. I'm not going to say retarded. I'm going to say exceptional individual. It's from the Huffington Post. Chris Christie, backpedaler, changing his tune on mask wearing. That was very interesting. So that was former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. That was is he the current governor? I don't know, but he's an awfully big man. I think he needs to focus on his health and not so much being a governor, because he's kind of a big man. But anyways, guys, that's gonna be it for the show. Guys, I've been waiting for phone calls all day, and apparently some of the people who wants to challenge me in Discord chats and everything else, apparently they're too scared to come face me, which is okay. I understand I'm a very big and intimidating man, but next time, guys, I run the show every day. If some of your friends who may be upset with me wants to say anything, maybe you can invite them to the show. Have them call in. The number to call in is 253-203-6784. Again, the number is 253-203-6784. But guys, that's gonna be it for the show. I love you all, and horns up, and peace out. Be safe. Wear a mask. Please wear a mask. Don't let mask wearing divide us again. That's so dumb. I love you all. Stay safe.